What, even from that side?
We can do it from
Yeah,
here.
from that side.
I mean,
Just from the side, then you've got a cutaway shot. Otherwise, nobody's got a cutaway shot.
and we're going to all be
We've got enough cameras. One of the ITN cameras could do the cutaway.
Yeah, yeah,
If we
okay.
could
One
get
of
one of the
the-
ITN cameras.
That's when it has, I'll just pass it. Or point in the general direction if it's like to.
Good morning, everyone. A little over 12 months ago, I took up residence in this House as First Minister of Scotland. Those present here this morning will have passed by the official portraits hanging on the wall of First Ministers, both past and indeed present. Those portraits, they chronicle the political journey that Scotland has been on over the last quarter of a century. Each of those First Ministers, in very different political climates, did what they thought was in the best interest of Scotland. They played the hand that circumstances had dealt them to the very best of their ability. On the day that Parliament nominated me to be First Minister, I set out how I intended to take Scotland forward. I said I wanted to ensure that every single family in Scotland has equality of opportunity, regardless of their background or where they live, to deliver focused and ambitious measures which protect our environment, which promote economic growth, improve people's well-being, and crucially reduce poverty. Fundamentally, I want to inspire confidence in people across the land that the best way to achieve the strongest economy, the best public services, the healthiest and happiest population is by becoming an independent nation. Over the past year, I'm proud to have laid the foundations down of that vision. We are investing record amounts in our NHS, ensuring it can employ record numbers of staff, delivering the best performing A&E units in the UK. We are, of course, the only part of the UK to avoid pay-related strike action in our NHS. I've delivered the council tax freeze this year in every local authority, helping families where we can during a cost of living crisis. We've removed peak fares on our railways, and last week we approved plans for Europe's largest floating offshore wind farm. These are just some of the actions that are making Scotland a better country. During my time as First Minister, Scotland's economy continued to grow while the UK fell into recession. Average earnings in Scotland are forecast to grow faster than the rest of the UK. Attainment is at a record high. Record numbers of students from deprived areas are entering universities. We are estimated this year to lift 100,000 children out of poverty due to our actions as the Scottish Government. Renewable technologies generated the equivalent of 113% of Scotland's overall electricity consumption in 2022. And Scotland continues to be the top destination in the UK for foreign investment outside of London. And of course, just this week, a report from HMRC found that far from driving people away from Scotland, our progressive taxation policy has actually been accompanied by a net migration from people across the UK. Thousands more people are coming to Scotland than leaving, generating tens of millions of pounds in additional tax revenue. People and businesses are looking at life in SNP-run Scotland, and they are voting with their feet by moving here. Being First Minister is both an enormous privilege and a great joy. The privilege of being able to make a positive difference in people's lives each and every single day. And the joy of meeting inspirational people from all walks of life, each in their own way, making life better for their families and their communities, gives me an unrivaled perspective on the many opportunities, but also the many challenges that our nation faces. As leader of this government, I have to decide, how can we best meet those challenges? How can we grow our economy in a fair and sustainable way? How can we ensure vital public services like our NHS are the best they can be? And how do we play our part as a responsible global citizen, helping to tackle issues like the climate and nature emergencies? For almost 3 years, we of course have done that through our cooperation agreement with the Scottish Green Party. That agreement has undoubtedly brought a number of successes. That includes delivering a progressive budget which prioritises our NHS and public services over tax cuts for the wealthy. It includes, of course, free bus travel for under 22s, bringing ScotRail into public ownership, committing the first £75 million of the 10-year Just Transition Fund for the North East and Moray. But cooperation in any sphere of life is, almost by definition, a trade-off, one which the benefits of working together are held up against the limitations of compromise. And when it comes to our agreement with the Scottish Green Party, I believe that the benefits have outweighed the compromises. When I said that the agreement was worth its weight in gold, I meant it. However, it is now my judgment that the balance has shifted. The Butte House Agreement was intended to provide stability to the Scottish Government, and it has made possible a number of achievements, but it has served its purpose. It's no longer guaranteeing a stable arrangement in Parliament. The events of recent days have made that clear. And therefore, after careful consideration, I believe that going forward, it is in the best interests of the people of Scotland to pursue a different arrangement. That is why, following a discussion with my Cabinet this morning, I have formally notified Patrick Harvie and Lorna Slater that I am terminating the Butte House Agreement with immediate effect. I spoke to both Patrick and Lorna earlier this morning. I thank them for their substantial contribution to the Scottish Government and to Scotland and their public service over the last few years. I also made clear to them that my intention is that our respective parties continue to work together where we can in the national interest. Significantly, we are resolute in our determination to give the people of Scotland a say on their constitutional future, which, of course, Westminster parties continue to deny the people. In essence, I hope that we will still be cooperating, but just returning to, frankly, a less formal arrangement. To continue delivering for the people of Scotland, I believe it is right that the SNP seek to broaden its sphere of cooperation. And that then brings me to what happens next. Having laid the foundations for my priorities in government over the last 13 years, we will now step up our ambition, but we will do so as a minority government. That will be tough. We will seek to work not just with the Scottish Greens, but with MSPs from across the chamber. The SNP has, of course, governed as a minority for most of our time in office, and having served as a minister for a number of years during that time, I'm well used to working constructively with opposition parties to, where necessary, secure parliamentary support. And I have no issue, none whatsoever, in doing so again. It was, of course, under that arrangement that some of our biggest successes in government were achieved, be that the creation of Social Security Scotland, a progressive taxation regime, the creation of the Scottish National Investment Bank, and, of course, the introduction of free university tuition. So despite the many challenges thrown in our way, such as Westminster austerity, Brexit, a global pandemic, this government has delivered for the people of Scotland. But the challenges of yesterday are not necessarily the challenges of tomorrow. And the SNP needs the freedom and flexibility to ensure that we move Scotland forward and adapt to that changing world. We need to speak to the country with one voice, our voice. And as such, I am clear that today marks a new beginning for the SNP government. I have a clear policy agenda that I wish to take forward, one that centres around growing our economy and supporting businesses, improving our NHS, tackling poverty and child poverty in particular, helping households during a Westminster cost of living crisis, standing up for the rights of everyone in Scotland, especially our most marginalised communities, and, for the avoidance of any doubt, tackling the climate emergency. A parliament of minorities need not be, and I would suggest should not be, a parliament of enemies. At its best, the Scottish Parliament has achieved great things for the people of Scotland. And as we approach its 25th anniversary, let us all pause and reflect and rededicate ourselves to ensuring that it continues in that vein. Let me, therefore, conclude with a direct message to the people of Scotland. During my first year of leadership, I hope I've demonstrated to you that I am fighting to change Scotland for the better. I am working tirelessly to build a strong, sustainable economy which works for everyone, to strengthen our NHS and other public services, to build a country in which everyone feels accepted and is able to reach their full potential, and to do what I can, in my own way, to create a more peaceful world. I joined the SNP because it's a party which, above all else, believes in Scotland. We have unlimited ambition for all of those who are fortunate enough to call this country their home. As your First Minister, I will always put Scotland's interest first. With that, I will now answer some journalists' questions. Can I thank Rachel and Yvonne for the BSL interpreting as well, and they'll continue to do that throughout the course of questions. So I have a list of a number of journalists. You will know that my time is tight. Thursday mornings, FMQs and FMQ prep I will have to get to. Let me take STV's Colin Mackay first.
First Minister, the Greens say today that you're weak and can't be trusted. This is clearly a very messy breakup. If you can't hold together a majority government, how are you going to manage a minority?
Well, first and foremost, emotions are raw, clearly, in the event of terminating the Butte House agreement. I want to thank Patrick and Lorna for the substantial contribution that they've made for their country, and compromise necessarily involves trade-offs. But you have those trade-offs because you believe there's a greater benefit. That greater benefit with the Butte House agreement, with the cooperation agreement, was stability in government. It's clear from events in recent days that there was not that stability. By the way, governing as a minority will be hard, will be difficult, we know that, but we're prepared to step up to the challenges. And while emotions are undoubtedly raw, what I would say to our Green colleagues is we look forward to continuing to cooperate with you on an issue-by-issue basis. I think a demonstration of that will be next week, when the Safe Access Zones bill from Gillian Mackay will be brought forward to the Parliament. The Scottish Government will support that wholeheartedly in that piece of legislation. So as soon as next week, we look forward to cooperating again with our Green colleagues. But as I say, that will happen in a less formal arrangement. And let's be clear, Colin, the judgment and the decision to terminate the Butte House agreement was my decision. It is the job of the First Minister, it is the job of the leader of the SNP to make decisions in the best interest, first and foremost, of the country, and then in the best interest also of my party. Thanks, Colin. Lindsay.
Thanks very much, First Minister. As recently as Tuesday, in interviews, you were saying how much you valued the Greens' partnership in government and how you hoped that their members would vote to continue it. What changed for you in less than 48 hours to cause such a significant U-turn in your position?
Look, I've been thinking about this for quite some time, but of course you'd understand that for me it was important to take some of that counsel in private. I've been speaking to people that I trust. I've been reflecting myself very hard and often with careful consideration around what is in the best interests of the country, the government, and importantly and crucially my party. That is my one of the responsibilities that I take exceptionally seriously to the party that elected me as leader. So I'm very proud of what the Butte House agreement has achieved thus far, but it has served its purpose. Now, we can point to significant successes over the last number of years, and it goes back to the point I was just making a moment ago, Lindsay, that ultimately the reason why you cooperate, the reason why you compromise is because there's a trade-off. That trade-off was, the benefit of those trade-offs was going to be stability in government. I don't think that in recent days we have seen the stability that we would like to see in government. And therefore I've made the decision, as I say, to terminate the Butte House agreement. I look forward to continuing to cooperate with all parties, and there's a serious challenge here to the opposition too. They cannot simply oppose for the sake of opposing. They have to work constructively in order to make sure that we continue as a parliament to achieve for the people of Scotland. So instead of sniping from the sidelines as they often do, not coming with anything useful in terms of suggestion, now it's time for the opposition to also step up, all parties in the opposition to step up. James.
Thanks very much, First Minister. You were strongly backing this deal with the Greens just days ago. said it was worth its weight in gold. Aren't the Greens right when they say that this U-turn shows that you are weak and hopeless?
Quite the opposite. It shows leadership. As a leader of the government, leader of the party that elected me, I've got to make sure I do what's in the best interest of Scotland. I've got to do what's in the best interest of my party, but ultimately what is in the best interest on our ability to deliver on the priorities of the people of Scotland. The Butte House Agreement, you're right. I've been an ardent supporter of it from day one when I was a minister in the government and when it was first constructed and agreed with the Green Party. I believe we've achieved a lot in terms of the Butte House Agreement. I can point to plenty of achievements over the past almost 3 years in terms of those achievements. But it has now served its purpose. And the benefits that the Butte House Agreement brought, I don't think those benefits we see to this day, and therefore I've taken that decision. I'm confident in that decision. I'm pleased with that decision. And I have to say, Cabinet, I'm pleased, endorsed that decision with enthusiasm. Can I go to Hannah? Hannah Brown, she's here from ITV Borough.
Thank you very much, First Minister. Do you feel like you're succumbing to pressure from the Greens here? Were you jumping? Were you pushed before you were before you jumped?
I've not been pushed. I'm still the First Minister of Scotland. I'm here. It's my decision to decide. It's my judgment call to decide how we operate as a government. And of course, when I became First Minister just over a year ago, I made that decision to continue the cooperation agreement. I don't regret that decision. I think we've achieved a lot over the course of last year. I've referenced some of that in the remarks that I've made. And I'm thankful to Patrick and Lorna. I know there was going to be a reaction. Emotions are raw. We have to absolutely accept that from my Green colleagues. But what I want to say is they should also be proud of the service that they've given this government and this country. But there's now a new beginning for the SNP. There's the ability to refocus in terms of our priorities and ensure that they continue to align with the priorities of the people of Scotland. And over the coming days, over the coming weeks, and indeed over the coming months and years, I intend to set out that refocusing of those priorities. Conor.
First Minister, if we just drill into the optics of this and expanding on what some colleagues have already said, just 48 hours ago you were standing defending Patrick Harvey as a minister in your government. You said that this was a partnership worth its weight in gold. Is it not fair for your critics to suggest you are not a First Minister in control and you're not a First Minister calling the shots? Very
opposite. Let me first say that I stand by what I've said. I value the Butte House Agreement and what it achieved. There's no ifs, buts, maybes about that. I value what we've achieved, and I think we've achieved a lot together. We can point to a lot that we've managed to achieve together in government. What this shows is leadership. What it shows is the ability for me is to decide to take control of our priority agenda and priority focus. And for me, I'll be demonstrating what that means in the coming days, in the coming weeks, and indeed the coming months. So, did I value the Butte House Agreement? Do I think it was the right thing to have done almost 3 years ago? Absolutely. It has served its purpose, and it's time for the SNP to now navigate the rest of the parliamentary term as a minority government. By the way, something we have done very successfully over the years. In fact, we are probably the UK's most successful party when it comes to running minority governments. It will be hard, it will be tough, there's no doubt about that, particularly in what can sometimes be seen as one of the most hostile parliamentary environments and political environments I've ever been in. So we don't underestimate the size and the scale of the challenge, but we believe that on an issue-by-issue basis there's the opportunity to cooperate with parties right across the Parliament, and we look forward to doing so. Catherine.
First Minister, were you told by anyone in your party either the Greens go or you go? And do you agree that makes you look weak and out of control?
No, I wasn't by anybody, so that's the answer to the question. It's been my judgment in terms of how we govern. And of course I take soundings. A hallmark of my leadership from day one has been to listen, to engage, to take advice, to speak to my party. I'm not going to indulge necessarily in every single private conversation, but no, nobody has ever put the challenge to me in the way that you have. But I think there has been a feeling that the Butte House Agreement has almost come to its natural conclusion. It has served its purpose, and now there's an opportunity for the SNP to continue to focus on what are the priorities of the people of Scotland and refocus some of that policy agenda. So the answer to your question directly is no. Everybody has had one question, Catherine. We'll move on to Channel 5 and Alan, who's got a question next.
You've said you've decided to end this, but let's be honest, you did this, you announced this to get in front of the Greens because it's better to do the breaking up than be dumped, isn't it?
I wouldn't know, but personally. I have to say, I would, but Alan, I mean, feel free to share a story or two. Look, for me and from my perspective, I don't know which way the Green vote would have gone. I don't know anybody who would have been able to guess which way the Green vote was going to go. So for me and my perspective, I have been thinking about this, particularly over the last week, but weeks, given a number of challenges that we faced undoubtedly as a government, but certainly been thinking hard about it over the course of the last week and what's in the best interest, yes, of the government and of the country, but also the party. I am leader of the SNP, not leader of a cooperation agreement, I'm not leader of the Butte House Agreement, I'm leader of the SNP, and I have to put my party's interests alongside, of course, the interests of the country and the interests of the government. So I have no idea which way the Green vote would have gone. That would have been for Green members to have decided upon. Gina.
Thanks. First Minister, is it time for a Holyrood election? You have not been voted by the Scottish people as First Minister. That was Nicola Sturgeon. Her big deal with the Greens has now collapsed under your leadership. You've got SNP backbenchers rebelling. People are in this room obviously questioning your leadership. Is it time to actually ask the people of Scotland what their priorities are when it comes to Holyrood?
Well, first and foremost, as a general election, of course, we know it could be any time over the course of this calendar year. So we look forward to putting our record very much in front of the people of Scotland and listening to their verdict. And remember, the people of Scotland, of course, voted for the SNP to be the largest party by quite some considerable distance, I would argue, in 2021. We are, of course, continuing as an SNP government. They voted for an SNP minority government in 2021. We continue to be an SNP minority government. And I think people want our political parties, of course, they want our political parties right across the political spectrums to continue to work together. We'll do that on a case-by-case basis. The ending of the Butte House Agreement does not mean and should never be taken as a suggestion that the SNP does not want to work with the Greens. We do, we will. And of course, next week will be a demonstration of the SNP-led government doing that. So let's continue to work together. We've got a policy agenda that we put in front of the people ahead of 2021. They elected us as the largest party. We continue to be the largest party, and we'll drive forward with that policy perspective. Paul.
First Minister, a key part of your leadership campaign last year was support for the deal with the Greens, and even a couple of days ago you were hoping that it continued. But now, after discussions with colleagues, you've decided to U-turn. Isn't it clear that you are a lame duck leader who is basically heading for the exit door?
No, not at all. This is leadership. This is the ability to say we are taking control as a party and indeed as a government on our priority terms, our policy terms. And that is clearly going to be demonstrated, and I think it has been demonstrated actually over the course of the almost 3 years we've been as part of the Butte House Agreement with the Greens, but will be continued to be demonstrated over the coming days, over the coming weeks, and over the coming months. And for me, it's really important, as leader of the SNP, to make sure I put this party's interests, of course, at the forefront of my mind. So I will do that, and I'm very confident, I have to say, when it comes to refocusing our policy priorities, they will be very much aligned and continue to be aligned with the priorities of the people of Scotland. Kieran.
Thanks, First Minister. A big driving force behind the Butte House Agreement coming in the first place was, as you said, stability, particularly on the back of competence votes in both Nicola Sturgeon and particularly John Swinney at the end of the last Parliament. Are you worried that now you're a minority government and the Greens are angry that competence votes may be brought and lost in ministers, including yourself?
Look, again, if the opposition want to play political games, that's for them to determine. We'll get on with the job of governing in the best interests of the people of Scotland. I should say the election, the Holyrood elections on 2026, let's be clear, we don't fear a Holyrood election. I'm quite confident in our record. I've got a fantastic team and we've got a vision to drive this country forward. So there's no fear from us whatsoever. And of course, in every single poll, almost bar none, we continue to show that we'd be the largest party in Holyrood. But we have been elected in 2021. We'll serve that full parliamentary term. That is what we'll be focused on until 2026. And we'll look forward over the next coming weeks, months, and indeed years to working with every single political party. I think the members of the public will also be watching the opposition to say, well, how will they play their constructive part, or will they just try to throw obstacles in the way of the government in terms of governing? So that will be a test, I think, for the opposition as much as a test for the government too. The Daily Mail's Jess North.
Thank you, Mr. Minister. Can I just ask what's going to happen to the ministerial responsibilities of state?
They'll be absorbed by the Cabinet Secretaries currently, and then, of course, we will give some consideration to how they are appropriately divvied up in the future, but they'll be essentially absorbed by the Cabinet Secretaries that are there. And let me thank once again Patrick Harvey, Lorna Slater for the incredible work that they've done as ministers in the government. Andy.
Thanks,
President General.
With the Greens now out of government, are you able to push on with long overdue projects that opponents of the House Greens have been held up? There's a few, specifically projects like the A96, Aberdeen and Inverness, that's been held up specifically because of the Green pressure.
Well, let's remember the A96 is going through a review in relation to its climate compatibility. Let me be abundantly clear that our commitment to tackling the climate crisis has not diminished one single bit. We continue to want to show leadership where we can in tackling the climate crisis, and of course having to move away from the 2030 target was not a decision we took lightly at all. We want to make sure we can demonstrate accelerated action in tackling the climate crisis. So we don't move away from that. We're not diminished in our ambition to tackle the climate crisis one bit. In terms of the refocus of priorities, you can imagine that work is very much underway, almost on a portfolio by portfolio basis. We'll be looking and examining what we can take forward and what we can take forward with pace. Butte House agreement or not, we still have an exceptionally difficult budget challenge. That's not helped, of course, by Westminster Government cutting our capital budget by £1.3 billion over the coming years. But continue to watch this space when it comes to, as I say, the refocusing of the priorities. Conor.
Thanks, Westminster. A leader who can't secure majority support for his flagship justice reforms isn't showing leadership on his week. A leader who's forced to ditch his cooperation agreement with a party that you've been backing from the Hill for the last year isn't strong. That's a weak leader. You've done almost everything Kate Forbes said she would do as leader when she ran against you. Isn't it just time to hand over the reins to someone with leadership in the party?
No, this is leadership. This is showing, demonstrating what is in the best interest of this government moving forward. What is in the best interest of the party moving forward. And I'll continue to talk to colleagues right across my party, whether they're MSPs, MPs, councillors, and begin to take, make sure we take the party forward together. I'm really proud of the progress that we've made as a party in my first year, just over first year, of leadership. I don't also withdraw one iota away from the important equality progress that we've made as a political party too. And we're a party that's rooted in social justice. We're a party of the centre-left. Be no mistake about it. We'll continue to be a party of the centre-left. We'll continue to be a party that stands up for equality, that stands up for social justice. And will continue to be a party that also is pro-independence, of course, and a party that also tackles the twin crisis of climate and nature. So we won't move back or withdraw or diminish from those positions one single iota. Lucy from the National.
Hi there, thanks, Westminster. What's the impact of losing a pro-independence majority on the independence cause?
The Parliament still has a pro-independence majority. It will continue to work with political parties such as the Greens, of course, that believe, as we do, that this country's best future is served as an independent nation in the European Union. So I look forward to continuing, as I did in the weekend, sharing platforms with the Greens, continuing our drive towards an independent nation. So I would say to independent supporters, the SNP government will continue to be focused on ensuring that people of Scotland get a say over their own future, and the challenge will be to Westminster parties in relation to stop denying the people of Scotland their choice over their own future. Sev, you had a hand up.
First Minister, one of the real reasons why you're in this position is because, and why the House View has collapsed, is because you failed as First Minister to deliver on some of the key policies of the agreement, and you're also terrified of losing seats at the general election. And this is all about saving your position and your post, nothing about what's best for the country or for the deal that you struck with the Greens.
No, look, I believe that stability is really important for governing and for the priorities of the people of Scotland. I think recent days and recent weeks have shown that that stability is not there. I believe that doing as we have done in the best traditions of this party in government, that minority government is the place for us to be, and we'll have to, of course, be very wise and careful around the battles that we choose to fight, and we will be absolutely and entirely focused on the people of Scotland's priorities. I have to go because it is now time for me to get